Welcome to the race.
And the lights are out. Great start then.
The Moto2 champion steps into the team that's dominating the championship.
I'm Scott Mitchell from the race. We're here at Barcelona.
Sebastian Vettel is fighting for his career.
There has to be a title assault, and anything less will be a failure.
Oh, and a spin!
Who wants to go, bro?
Since 1969, this is a race that's been won by Group C cars, Formula Nippon cars, Super GT cars, and now the Dallara SF19. This is the JAF Grand Prix 2020, Race 2. My name is Sam Collins, and you are watching the-race.com. I'm joined, as ever, by Leo Gorman. Leigh, this is going to be, if anything, yesterday's anything to go by, this is going to be quite some motor race today.
I think we're looking forward to quite a manic motor race. Hopefully maybe not as utterly chaotic as what we had yesterday, as we've just seen some clips from qualifying earlier on today. It was actually an interesting session with Hirakawa eventually running the early pace. Now, Hirakawa has been having troubles in qualifying. He didn't get to set a time yesterday, but this time around, it was actually Tadasuke Makino and the front row sitter from yesterday, that's Tomoki Nojiri on screen now, and Kazuya Oshima not making it through. In the second part of Q1, you see Sekiguchi at the front of the queue there with Ukyo Sasahara just behind. Initially, it was Sekiguchi who set the early pace, while Nick Cassidy was also doing his best to make sure that he had a better qualifying than yesterday. He, of course, went out in Q2, but Cassidy eventually did up the pace from Sekiguchi with just a few minutes left in the session. As we see, he set a 1 minute 35.5, but this was an interesting session for Cassidy, who didn't actually set a quicker time than that, and he came perilously close to actually dropping out of qualifying one, while at the meantime, Naoki Yamamoto, race winner and pole sitter from yesterday, he jumped to the top of the standings temporarily, while it was Toshiki Oyu who would eventually take the top spot in Q1B in his Nakajima racing machine. A very, very good time for the rookie. A 1 minute 34.9 was the best he needed for that session. Meanwhile, not the easiest session for Kondo Racing again. Kenta Yamashita, like yesterday, not making it through to Q2. He was knocked out and is near enough, just 2 positions lower than he was yesterday. In Q2, however, Cassidy again warming up, and this time he got into absolute gear, and he was quickest in this Q2 session, and really showing that, you know, he does have qualifying pace where and when he needs it. A 1 minute 35.1 was his early running before Naoki Yamamoto pipped that as well. But then, as we see Yamamoto crossing the line, there was one little shock, and that shock was the former championship leader, as we see on screen now, Rio Hirakawa. He actually fell out in Q2, and an interesting situation for Hirakawa. The car actually was rebuilt following his accident yesterday, but the floor kept rubbing off the ground, and it looks like that was costing him speed in the faster sections of the track. Cassidy, meanwhile, didn't have that issue. A 1 minute 34.7 meant he would top that session. Here is Oyu also making his way through into Q3 with a 1 minute 34.9. Very good effort from the rookie. Sasha Fenestras, however, setting a lap time in the 1 minute 35s. It would not work out for him. He would eventually fall out in Q2, and he starts in 11th place. Now, Ukyo Sasahara, the rookie, sitting in for Team Mugen, he set a time good enough to get into Q3, as did Kamui Kobayashi, the veteran in Super Formula at this stage. Hirakawa, no bad session. He starts in P14. It's kind of unraveling for Hirakawa, the former championship leader at this stage. But he's in Q3. We saw another battle, but maybe not quite as close as it was in Q2. Fukuzumi and then Yamamoto setting initial fast times. But curiously, the Team Tom's pair of Nick Cassidy and Kazuki Nakajima stayed in the pits for the first few minutes of the session, deciding only a single run was necessary. It was all Cassidy needed. He got a lap in with 3 minutes left on the clock of 1 minute 34.442, and that was enough to give him pole position. He did go for one more quick lap, but wasn't quite as fast as the checkered flag came out. Naoki Yamamoto came across the line to set only the 4th fastest time. But that would actually become 3rd when Ukyo Sasahara, the Mugen driver we mentioned earlier on, he qualified 3rd, but then was given a 10-place group penalty for an engine change later on. Meanwhile, Yamamoto, that promotes him up to 3rd place, gifts him a single point. Cassidy on pole gets 3 points for his championship challenge, and the rookie Toshiki Oyu starts 2nd, gets 2 extra points. There's the times on screen. 0.2 of a second for Nick Cassidy. That's the gap he had over 2nd place Oyu in the Nakajima racing car. Sasahara drops down the order. He will start 13th, promoting all those just below him, single position. And note 2 for Charles Malaysia, qualified 8th, his first appearance in Q3 in only his 2nd weekend in Super Formula. Excellent job for him. The likes of Fenestraz, Hirakawa, and Lugiri going to have tough jobs from that far back. And another note, Nobuharu Matsushita did qualify 15th. He will start last following an engine change. Both of those engine changes made necessary because of accidents yesterday's race.
Well, that really sums up the pace of these Super Formula cars. Each one a Dallara chassis fitted with a 650 brake horsepower 4-cylinder engine provided by either Toyota or Honda, depending on which team you're driving for. Not a spec race, there's engine development going on. And that lightweight performance of the Dallara chassis puts these cars not all that far off Formula One pace around Suzuka. Lewis Hamilton's best lap in the 2019 Japanese Grand Prix was a 1 minute 30, 0.9. Obviously, the pole position time we just saw there, a 1 minute 34.4. Just about 3 seconds, 3 and a bit seconds slower. It's really in the realms of Formula One pace this season, and really just Super Formula locks its position in as the 2nd fastest single-seater series in the world, quicker than Indycar and significantly quicker than Formula 2 as well.
And Sam, with this, the SF19 chassis now in its 2nd year, a lot of the teams, the engineers have worked out a lot of the great nuances of setting up this car. And that effectively shows in the qualifying pace we just mentioned. Cassidy, 1.5 seconds faster than last year's pole position time at Suzuka. Okay, yes, it's December. The temperature's a little bit different. It's actually still relatively balmy. I believe it was 13 degrees air temperature earlier on, 15 degrees track temperature. It's cooler, but maybe nowhere near as cool as we initially thought it would be at this time of year. But there's been a couple of little changes to take that into account. Of course, as at Autopolis and yesterday, we will have 2 formation laps. But it's been an interesting change for the tyres this weekend, Sam. Could you tell me a little bit more about that?
Well, the tyre temperature is going to be significantly different. But because everybody expects it to be really cold conditions, we would think we're talking about numbers like -1, 0 degrees centigrade. It's actually a lot hotter than that. Normally, you're not allowed tyre warmers in Super Formula. But in this season, well, in this event, because they expected it to be so cold, this also plays into the final round at Fuji Speedway as well. We expected the tyres to be much, much cooler, so they can put the tyres, they're normally tyre blankets are banned, they can put them in these little tents they've built behind the garage, and they pump in hot air into that garage using what looks like a little jet engine, and then that keeps the hot tyres up to temperature. You're not allowed, though, specific tyre blankets, so the tyres will be going on the cars somewhat warmer than we're used to, and we saw that in yesterday's race as well. The tyre temperatures are higher after the pit stop, so you don't see that really cold tyre struggle on the way out of the pits.
No, not as much. And I think you could tell if you were to watch the Autopolis race and yesterday's race back to back, you could see the difference in attitude of the car handling when they were coming out of the pits. Autopolis, they were skating around, struggling for grip, losing up to 4 seconds in that first lap out of it after a pit stop. Yesterday, not so much. You can see visibly the confidence the drivers had coming out of the pits on new tyres. Okay, they weren't able to jam on the throttle straight away, but they weren't having any of the kind of cold temperature glides and shakes that they would normally have in a regular season, as it were.
Something else that's different for this race is the overtaking boost system. But I think to really explain that a little bit better, we first need to take a look at what happened just under 24 hours ago here at Suzuka Circuit in the first race at the JAF Grand Prix. Leigh, it was a race that never really got going, at least at the beginning, because we saw cars like Nojiri not even making it to the starting grid. And it did take us a while to really get the race action going. We saw Nojiri fall to the back of the field, and then Sekiguchi, he didn't make it back to the start either. It was cars falling off all over the place. Then once the race did actually get started, well, Toshiki Oi was there near the front of the field. That usually means one thing: someone's going to wreck, and this time it was his teammate who stuffed it into the squishy barrier.
Indeed, they collided actually just coming around the exit of turn 2 there, Sam. It actually gave Makino a right rear puncture, and that exploded effectively only a few corners later and sent Makino into the barrier. Yamamoto had so many restarts yesterday from his safety car and nailed all of them, but here's Cassidy and the Nakajima car racing hard earlier on. It's Oyu, but on then Cassidy slow coming out of the hairpin and allowed Hirakawa to take both of them at the same time.
And then we saw this bit of a mystery accident. This on the way into 130R, you can just see it. There was a tyre failure on that car. That brought out the safety car. Driver was okay, but it really compressed the field together. The battles got going, and there was a really tough battle there going on between Uche Sasahara, the Inging Motorsport car, and then you saw Rio Hirakawa trying to get past a lot of them. They went 4 wide down the start-finish straight. Sasahara, unsighted, not realising he was so close to the other cars, turned across the Inging Motorsport car and found himself and the championship leader wedged in the barrier. Sasahara escaping from his inverted car pretty easily. Neither driver hurt, but Hirakawa's championship points were absolutely ruined at that point. And that brought out yet another safety car, which really took us to almost the end of the race. But Naoki Yamamoto took a narrow victory over Kazuki Nakajima. But he didn't just take that narrow victory, he also took lead of the championship on the points table.
And the other aspect, I think the luckiest aspect of that big crash towards the end of that race, Sam, was actually Kamui Kobayashi, who was the 4th driver in the incident right over to the far side of the track, because Sasahara's car got a little bit airborne and actually landed for just a brief moment on Kobayashi's nose cone, missed his front wing completely, and effectively bounced off the top of the KCMG car. Ishura taken out in that accident. Shosuboi taken out in that accident. A disappointing race for him. He's actually only scored in 1 race so far this season, and that was his race win at Okayama at the start of the year. So he's still sitting on 20 points, but very unhappy. But he had to retire as well because he actually got clipped. His right front got clipped in the midst of that accident, gave him suspension damage.
I mean, this is really one of those circuits that does produce unexpected racing action. It does it in Formula 1, it does it in Super GT, and of course it does it here in Super Formula. Suzuka Circuit, the grand old lady of Japanese motorsport, really is a spectacular venue, and we had a great opportunity to take an extremely high-speed tour of it earlier this weekend. Riding on board, just taking a look around with Nojiri, coming down the start-finish straight, slightly downhill, looking out towards the coast. Now look at the turn-in speed into the apex for the Snake. It's absolutely huge turn-in speed through this section of track, through the left-hander here and into the right, and this run into the twisting section of the track, past IQ Bank. This section of track is actually slightly faster in a Super Formula car than it is in a Formula One car. Then coming out of Dunlop Corner, that short shoot up to the Degners is usually an overtaking opportunity. But look at the turning speed for the first Degner, slowing down slightly for the second one, then under the crossover, running up the hill towards the hairpin. Another overtaking opportunity here, trying to get up the inside of the hairpin, but Nojiri is so quick in there, if anybody was close to him, they wouldn't have a chance. Then along through Matcha Corner, this right-hander that nobody in Europe ever talks about, the Japanese know all about. This is where you set up a run on the way up to the very long left-hand corner at Spoon. Onto the brakes, then wait so long. Getting a good exit off this is so important because you're onto the long back west stretch past the support race pits. You're going to be trying to get a toe off the car in front, coming down to the absolutely flat left-hander, 130R. Hopefully your tyre stays in one piece. It didn't yesterday. Then going straight in to the chicane, right and left, bounce the curbs, get the run down the start-finish straight, and then start another lap of this great Suzuka circuit. It doesn't seem very long when you look at that, but that was 1 minute 34.6, almost Formula One pace. And that is why so many young drivers are being sent to prove themselves in this championship, Leigh.
Absolutely, Sam. And this has provided such a brilliant benchmark for younger drivers. Because you do have just young drivers, you also have the experienced drivers. We have ex-Formula One drivers. We have world sports car drivers in this championship. So it actually provides a very good professional benchmark for those drivers coming in. And an interesting note, actually, now that we're in round 6, Sam, the penultimate round of the year, only this and Fuji left, we're now in the position of dropped scores. And something I was mentioning off air earlier on, one of the drivers who could be in a position to drop scores in this race is Tomoki Nojiri, who we just saw on screen a moment ago. The other driver is actually the pole man, Nick Cassidy, as we see on screen there, the Valentine team's Tom's car. Then we have Toshiki Oyu in the Nakajima racing car. He'll be hoping for a clean race today. Yamamoto and Fukuzumi, it's an all dandelion row 2. And then you got Kumu Kobayashi and Kazuki Nakajima in the KCMG and Valentine team's Tom's cars. They're 5th and 6th. So Charles Malaysia, very, very good effort for him in only his second race weekend. Kunimoto beside him. Then Yuki Sekiguchi for Team Impul. Then Sho Suboi alongside Sasha Fenestraz leading the Kondo racing battle there. Hiroki Ishura, 12th on the grid. He'll be hoping to climb up the order with his Inging teammate. Ukyo Sasahara initially qualified 3rd, but a 10-place group penalty for an engine change drops him down to 13th. He sits beside former championship leader Rio Hirakawa. Tadasuki Makino, 15th on the grid with Kenta Yamashita in the second Kondo racing car in 16th place. Then you have Tomoki Nojiri, who we just saw on board with a few moments ago. Tatiana Calderon, 18th on the grid. And then you got the back row of the group, Kazuya Oshima, continuing his run of difficult qualifying sessions, while Nobuhara Matsushita initially qualified 15th, got a grid penalty. He starts last.
Well, just looking at the cars coming out of the pits, I believe for the warm-up session or highlights from it yesterday. I'm not quite sure what we're seeing here. This is highlights from yesterday, and well, we're seeing the highlights again. Leigh, one of the things that I was going to talk about was the lights on the roll hoop. That people often ask what that is about. That's the overtaking boost system. These cars have got a fuel flow limited engine, just like you have in Le Mans prototypes and also on Formula One cars. And as you can see on Oyu's car, he can't see the car in front of him what that light is going to be. But if you looked in the mirrors, he'd be able to see on the roll hoop this green light on the roll hoop. You know, it's solid green at the start of the race. That's because everybody's got a fully charged overtaking boost system. Normally, they have 100 seconds of extra fuel flow to give a bit more power as an overtaking boost. When they deploy that, the light on the roll hoop starts to flash quickly. Then once they've used it, there's a maximum amount of time they can use it for. It starts to flash slowly. When it's flashing slowly, the driver in front will know that car isn't going to be able to make a sudden boost of power and get a run at them. However, for this JAF Grand Prix Race 2, there's been a slight change in the regulations, and we're going to see 200 seconds of overtaking boost. So look at a lot of trigger-happy drivers trying to press the button, trying to accelerate using that overtaking boost as much as possible. Takuma Sato's explaining that point just now to everybody at home. And that's why we brought in the overtaking boost chat at this point. But it's really very important for the drivers to understand these points of the overtaking boost, 200 seconds rather than 100 seconds. Those roll hoop lights are going to start flashing like crazy. But the drivers can run out of the overtaking boost system. They go from green to red, and red is when they're running out. Then they go out altogether when they've got no boost left. I'm not sure we're going to see that by the end of this race. If it's anything like yesterday's race, it's going to be really a dash between safety car periods. Suzuka builds safety cars. Well, they literally do build them up the road at the Honda factory at the top of the hill.
The message there from Takuma Sato, of course, now a two-time Indy 500 winner, Sam.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping that we heard he was going to be at the race. I was kind of hoping they might let him hop into one of the spare cars and actually take part in this JAF Grand Prix, but they decided not to. So it might be, we thought he might have been into one of these cars as the teams and drivers limber up on the starting grids. Some final tyres going on, the final fettling, as you usually see in the start-finish line.
And Sam, just going back to something we mentioned a few moments ago about the championship standings. Of course, 5 of the best results count. Cassidy, Nick Cassidy, third in the championship, pole sitter today. He is in a position to drop a race score already. He has scored in all 5 races so far, but if he were to get his lowest score so far is 7th place at Autopolis. If he gets 6th or higher, actually, if he gets 8th or higher, he would actually drop Autopolis because he would get the 3 points for pole position. Tomoki Nojiri is the other driver who can actually drop a score today. His lowest position, 10th place at Okayama. He would drop a single point if he finished 9th or higher later on today. The championship leader, Naoki Yamamoto, his worst finish so far this season is actually 13th, which was achieved at the opening round of Motegi. So if he gets better, 12th or higher, he won't lose out. And Rio Hirakawa, difficult job for him from 14th. His worst finish so far is actually the retirement he registered yesterday, so he is free to score should he do so.
And Nick Cassidy there sitting on pole position with that Red Bull branding on his crash helmet. Leo Gorman hasn't managed to mention this is a multiple New Zealand Grand Prix winner. Will he be able to add the JAF Grand Prix to it today? We'll find out in the next, well, hour and a half, I'd say. We will know the answer to that question. But first of all, we need to clear the grid, and there's lots of very big flags down there. That's to look at.
And Yamamoto's third on the grid there. That's actually worked out quite well for Yamamoto because it puts him on the clean side of the grid now that Sasahara's had his penalty. Of course, Yamamoto already a twice Super Formula champion. He is champion in 2013 and 2018. Runner-up last year, just behind Nick Cassidy. And of course, he's been a Super GT champion as well. And let's not forget, he did get a run out in the Toro Rosso in the Japanese Grand Prix last year. And although not on the Formula One prospect by any stretch of the imagination, I think there was a lot of eyebrows kind of raised the possibilities that he really could have been. But a very, very, very talented young man.
Well, don't forget to hit like and subscribe here on the-race.com. You're watching the 2020 Super Formula Championship. Lots of questions coming into the chat as the grid is cleared. Big thank you, though, to our moderators and members as we get the opening declaration from Mr. Sensible Jacket. It's the JAF president, Kazuhiro Fuji, and he's just saying he wishes everybody has a great race and a very straightforward, sensible, quite sensible run and safe race that's very entertaining for everybody watching this race at Suzuka circuit. Now, what you will see at the start of the race are it's not a reverse grid race. This is a straight up fresh race. We've had the fresh qualifying session. So the fastest guy starts fast and the slowest guy starts at the back, other than those with penalties for engine changes, which we did see 2 cars take engine change penalties. It is an engine war formula, but not a tyre war formula. Everybody's running the same identical Yokohama tyres, as Mr. Fuji explains to us. And he says, thank you and have a good day at Suzuka Circuit today. And says, thank you to that.
Quadcore asks in the chat, is the start reversed or not? No, proper qualifying, proper race.
Simple as that, yeah. Proper qualifying, proper race, and we'll have a proper national anthem in any moment, which is why we're rather filling the time, because we're waiting for them to start the national anthem. The teams and drivers are waiting for that as well. On the timing screen during the race, what you might see, this is just answering a question that a few people had yesterday, is you might see T and H, that's Toyota and Honda, denoting the different engine suppliers in the back of the car. Well, the teams on the grid are ready for the national anthem, but the spectators are all still sitting down. So we just wait for everybody to come to their feet for the Japanese national anthem to be played. And as we wait for that, a question just came in on the chat. Do you need super license points to get to Super Formula? No, you don't. But you do earn a lot of them for winning Super Formula. And here's the Japanese national anthem.
第19回 JAF 鈴鹿グランプリの開催にあたり国歌の演奏を行います。恐れ入ります会場の皆様、ご起立ご脱帽のご協力をお願い申し上げます。
Well, the Japanese national anthem for me means one thing: a great afternoon of motor racing to come. You've got 20 identical Dallara SF19 chassis lined up on the grid, all equipped with Yokohama tyres, but Honda and Toyota different engines in the back, all of them 2-litre turbocharged, kicking out about 650 brake horsepower, and they will be turning them up and letting rip any moment. But is everybody going to get to the start? Not long to go as the girl holds up the 1-minute board. We saw problems yesterday. Will anybody have problems today? Few little engineering tweaks from the teams. They're set up differently and the engines are fired up on the starting grid. Nick Cassidy will lead the field round for 2 warm-up laps of Suzuka Circuit. And now you can see those green lights on the roll boot. Those overtaking boost systems are all fully charged up. They will get an extra bit of fuel flow for 200 seconds of this race, and they will use that wisely. Look for those lights flashing on and off very quickly. That's when the system is deployed. When the lights is flashing slowly, it means they've just deployed it and they can't use it anymore. They are sitting ducks when it's flashing slowly. The lights will start on green, then turn to red as the system starts to run out of their allotted time. Then the lights go out altogether. That overtaking boost allowance has been used up. But as we look forward to Nick Cassidy in the green and white Vantolin Team Tom's car, Toyota powered. Alongside him is the TCS Nakajima racing car. That's the blue and white car. That is powered by a Honda engine. This is Honda territory. It's a grudge match, Leigh. Who's going to come out on top?
Absolutely.
But look at that circuit. It is absolutely glorious. Looking out across the bay near Nagoya, a Japanese city, near Yokkaichi and Shiroko, little cities near Suzuka City itself. The circuit built on between former paddy fields. now, and when they built it, it was the funny shape because they didn't want to build the circuit on paddy fields and interrupt Japan's food production system. However, as things modernized, they decided to build a theme park on the paddy fields, and that is called Mobility Land, which is why you see big wheels and roller coasters by the side of the track. It looks like quite a fun day out at Mobility Land. I've only ever walked through there on the way to the paddock from the hotel, and it always is quite a welcome morning walk and slightly surreal as well.
Now, Sam, final run through the grid before this race starts. Starting at the back, Nobuharu Matsushita in the B-Max-powered Honda. He took a engine penalty, so he goes right to the back of the field with a 1 minute 35.6. Then you have Kazuya Oshima in the rookie racing team with a 1 minute 36.6, just behind Tatiana Calderon in the single-entry Drago Corsa team. Then 17th on the grid is Tomoki Nojiri. He started second yesterday, not as good today in the Team Mugen team. That's a 1 minute 36.1. Then Kenta Yamashita starting 16th in the Kondo Racing entry, just behind Tadasuke Makino in the Nakajima car. He had a 1 minute 36.1. Then the driver knocked out of Q2. Strange run in Q2 for Rio Hirakawa, the former championship leader in the Team Impul car. He is just behind Ukyo Sasahara, who originally qualified third, but took a 10-place grid penalty for an engine change in the Mugen entry. Then 12th, starting 12th is Hiroki Oshira in the Ingin car, 1 minute 35.6. Then Sasha Fenestraz is so qualifying for him. He'll look to improve in his Kondo Racing entry. He was the fastest in Q1 Group A yesterday, at 1 minute 35.6. Then you have Sho Suboi in the Ingin car, race winner in Okayama earlier on this year, 1 minute 35.5 in 10th place. Yuki Sekiguchi in the other Team Impul car, 1 minute 35.4. He starts 9th. Then Yuji Kunimoto, the fastest driver to be knocked out of Q2 in Team KCMG with a 1 minute 35.3. Then the drivers who got through to Q3, fantastic effort for Charles Milesi in only his second weekend in Superformula in the B-Max entry. He starts 7th with a 1 minute 35.4. Then Kazuki Nakajima starting 6th in Tom's car, a 1 minute 35.1. Kamui Kobayashi starts 5th in Team KCMG, a 1 minute 35.0. Then top 4, you have Narei Fukuzumi in the Dandelion Racing car, a 1 minute 34.9. Naoki Yamamoto qualified 4th. He moves up to 3rd following Sasahara's penalty in the Dandelion Racing car at 1 minute 34.8. Good job for the championship leader. Then on the front row of the grid, you have the rookie Toshiki Oyu in the Nakajima Racing car. He was the fastest in qualifying 1 Group B, a 1 minute 34.6. And on pole position and on screen for you now, Nick Cassidy in the team's Tom's entry, his 3rd pole in Superformula, fastest in Q2, fastest in the warm-up, 1 minute 34.4. He will be looking to win. We are going to be looking at this race.
Don't forget to hit like, don't forget to hit subscribe. You are watching the-race.com. It's the 2020 Super Formula Series, and this is race 2 of the JAF Grand Prix about to get going. It is going to be a very exciting start, and it's going to be a little bit lively to see who's going to be running. I think everybody just needs to be focusing on this start line. Too late to hit like, too late to hit subscribe. Of course, it's not. Do that straight away. The Honda Civic is lining up at the back of the grid. We're going to see the man with the green flag get ready. No troubles for anybody getting to the start line here. He raises the flag. We're ready. You're going to see the 5 lights come on, and then the 5 lights go out, and that is the start of the race. Now, and there goes Nick Cassidy getting a relatively good getaway and chops across in front of Oyu in the Honda engine TCS Nakajima car, and they are 1st and 2nd into the 1st corner. Yamamoto there going into 3rd. Fairly orderly start there, Leigh. All worked out quite nicely for, well, pretty much everyone. Bit of a back battle in the mid-pack there, though. We're going into the snake for the first time.
Yeah, no real change in the top 5 there. Sam Cassidy leads from Oyu. Then you have the 2 Dandelion Racing cars, Kamui Kobayashi in 5th place. And then it's Sasahara. Oh, and another difficult weekend for Ukyo Sasahara. Showed his pace and is a slow driver there. But Sasahara originally qualified 3rd, had the engine penalty, and now it looks like he's stalled on the grid. Race weekend is over for him, and still no points for the young Japanese driver. Great disappointment, but a clean getaway at the start of at the front of this race, and a clean getaway crucially for Toshiki Oyu, who's been involved in a number of incidents so far this season. He'd be looking to finally turn a good qualifying pace into a good race result.
Yeah, Sasha Fenestras nowhere near Toshiki Oyu. Probably, fortunately for both of them, to be honest. They've had a few run-ins in both Super GT and in Super Formula. Fenestras there running in the mid-pack at the moment. But Nick Cassidy not breaking away at the moment too much from Oyu, and that could be worrying for the Kiwi because Oyu is, well, inexperienced and isn't up to pace here. Well, look, there you can see that overtaking boost system in use, that fast flashing light as those two cars dived into 130R. That was Tatiana Calderon in the Freebond Racing sponsored car. But Nick Cassidy up the front, he's been using his overtaking boost system to try and stay ahead of Toshiki Oyu. Look at the way the light is flashing slowly. That means he cannot deploy that overtaking boost system at the moment. When that light goes solid green again, he's got the system back armed and ready to go again. He will be using this throughout the race.
And of course, my mistake there, Kobayashi dropped down a couple of places. It's actually Sekiguchi who's jumped from 9th in the grid up to 5th. Fukuzumi has got ahead of his teammate, but Yamamoto was under pressure there coming across the line from Sekiguchi. Yamamoto doesn't really want to lose too many positions. He may be leading this championship as it stands at the moment, but you still do not want to drop scores to Nick Cassidy, a driver who really likes to punish mistakes when they present themselves. Cassidy has won earlier on this year. He won at Sugo. We've had no drivers actually score more than one race in a season, race win in a season since 2018. Cassidy will be looking to break that duck and get his second race win of the year if he can. Long way to go yet. We're only on lap 2.
This mid-pack battle has got trouble written all over it. Everybody from basically Naoki Yamamoto and Sekiguchi back all the way to almost to Oshima down in 16th position are driving round Suzuka on a line astern guided tour of this track in Mie Prefecture. But up front, Nick Cassidy isn't breaking away from Toshiki Oyu. Fukuzumi is also not too far behind. The Kiwi is going to have to do something to try and get a little bit of clear air ahead of these two Honda engine cars, as that I think was Kobayashi.
It's a problem on the left rear. That is Kobayashi, you're right, Sam. It is Kobayashi, and another left rear issue. I think that's a puncture.
It is a puncture. His tyres down, and that's Nakajima losing a position there to the Inging Motorsport car into the first corner. So it's already getting quite lively. Not quite sure how Kobayashi got that puncture on the left rear. Let's not forget, we saw a left rear puncture. It was what put that car into the barrier yesterday. But that could be the result.
That's Yamashita.
Yeah, Kenta Yamashita. That's why we saw the car with the puncture. He's had a fairly heavy hit with Sasha Fenestras, who his first lap duck really isn't. He really just can't get these first laps right. It's almost never his fault either. I feel very sorry for Sasha there. But the safety car is out, and I don't think you'll see too many people heading for pit road. Or, well, you see Sasha Fenestras walking despondently back to pit road. Just checking that he's all in one piece. He is. Kamui Kobayashi clearly had contact with him. We don't know the circumstances. Hopefully we'll get a replay from race control, find out quite how that happened. Kamui, though, famous for not being an easy man to overtake. However, that safety car has kept Kobayashi on the lead lap, I believe. So as his team boss looks on, and of course if he looks familiar, he is. You normally see him at the wheel of a very different car in GT500 in Super GT. It is, of course, Ronnie Coulterella's famous teammate. He likes playing with his train set and is a Mie Prefecture local. It's, of course, Sugiya Matsuda, and he will be enjoying that. But there's your Honda NSX pace car coming around to pick up Nick Cassidy. And we will see that. I'm curious to see how Fenestras managed to find the barriers there at the final chicane, because it looked like quite a big hit. So it must have been on the way into the chicane rather than the chicane itself. That's where Kobayashi picked up that rear puncture as well.
They were together on track, Sam, because Kobayashi had dropped several positions later on in that first lap, whereas Fenestras had actually picked up a couple of positions. So they were pretty much kind of behind, just by each other on track. Another driver to lose out in those early laps, unfortunately, is, of course, the rookie Charles Malaysia, who I think he lost a lot of positions on the opening lap. I did see, for a flash, just for a second, a driver going slow. And at a time, I thought it was actually Matsushita Matsushita, it was his teammate Malaysia. He dropped 10 positions on that opening lap. Somewhere along the line, he actually got it a little bit wrong. Now, to note for those who just saw Kobayashi pit, that, of course, is not his mandatory pit stop. He still has to come in. You can only make your mandatory pit stop between laps 10 and 29 in this race. So Kobayashi may think that he can go to the end of this race, but he will actually have to stop again. So it may not necessarily get too good for him as this race goes on. Kobayashi 19th and last of the runners. Fenestra's, of course, not well, he's out of the car, very much out of the race.
Well, he's out of the race and his car's there on the Snatch tractor. Just while we've got safety car out, it's a good moment to mention you're watching a Super Formula on the-race.com. Don't forget to check out that website, as Sasha Fenestras will probably be left to do in the pits while watching the race here as well. Bad luck for Sasha once again in Super Formula. And don't forget to hit like, don't forget to hit subscribe. Join the channel if you want as well. We'd like to hear from you in the chat. However, there's questions coming in on the chat. Alex Jansen asks, has anyone from Super Formula ever got to Formula One? If so, who? Well, I'll start with Michael Schumacher, who made a Formula Nippon, which is the old name for Super Formula, back at Sportsland Sugo. Did one race, then disappeared off and drove something called a Jordan at the Belgian Grand Prix in the 1990s. But then you've got Kunimitsu Takahashi, Kazuyoshi Hoshino, Satoru Nakajima, who went on to Formula One back in the early days. Then Heinz-Harald Frentzen, Ralf Schumacher, Pedro Della Rosa, Eddie Irvine, Tiger Takagi, Kamui Kobayashi, Stoffel Van Dorn, Pierre Gasly. And then you've also got drivers like Andre Lotterer, who did one Grand Prix but was better known as a sports car racer, winning Le Mans a number of times. Other drivers in a similar pit situation as that of Benoit Treluet and Loic Duval. And of course, we can't not mention Kazuki Nakajima. So one of the things about Super Formula that really sets it aside from a lot of other racing series, big single-seater racing series, this isn't a straight old feeder series. This isn't a Formula One feeder series like Formula 2. This is a professional racing championship. So what you see, you're seeing drivers who've done their time in Formula One coming back and racing in this championship. That's why you've got drivers like Kazuki Nakajima, Le Mans winner, ex-Formula One driver. He's racing in this championship. He's come back to this. You've also seen, we have seen at times drivers doing double duty. There was a suggestion that Pierre Gasly at one point would be racing in Formula One and racing in Super Formula. He didn't keep it going for very long. He missed out on a championship to go and race in Formula One, and he never did quite get his Super Formula championship as a result. But this is a championship where the driving standards are so high that some organisations like Red Bull will send drivers out here to try to see how they perform against some of the very best drivers in the world, like this man, Nick Cassidy, who is without doubt one of the finest drivers in international motor racing right now. For reasons of geography and probably budget, Cassidy's never really had his chance in Formula One. But
Kobayashi again, Sam.
Yeah, Kamui Kobayashi back into the pits for another run. There's another driver who's done his time in Formula One and is now plying his trade in Super Formula. So if you want to see how a young driver stacks up against some of the finest in the world, there is only Super Formula. That's why it's such a tough challenge. And actually, as I understand it, talking to some young racing drivers, some of them actually dread being sent to Super Formula because they say, firstly, the cars are so physical, and secondly, the level of driver out there is so high. It's higher than Indycar, and it's higher than that of Formula 2. This is the toughest challenge for a young driver outside of Formula 1. And that is why so many drivers find themselves in this championship.
It's interesting, Sam, that, of course, we mentioned this is not a feeder formula in any way, shape or form. It is very much a professional series, but this championship does offer super license points should you wish to go to Formula One. The champion in Super Formula picks up 25 super license points. It's actually one of the reasons why Yuri Vips was initially slotted to appear in Super Formula this year. Of course, that happened for various reasons with regards to working visas and whatnot, but you know, it not only is it a wonderful benchmark, it is actually a benchmark that could award you very, very highly should you actually be successful.
Yeah, for a young driver to win the Super Formula Championship really should be putting you on the radar of pretty much every Formula One team, because it means that guy is pretty good behind the wheel of a racing car. Nick Cassidy, it's a real surprise to me that he never managed to get a Formula One test. Now he's going off to Formula E. I think he's going to be a bit too good for Formula E, in my opinion. The standard of drivers in Formula E is, of course, extremely high, but Cassidy is something really special, and I think really he should be in a Formula One car. Frederick S. Cairo and Reset the Picture both asked similar questions in the chat here on the-race.com, as we see someone going very slowly down the west stretch. I'm not sure who that was, but I fear it might have been the Docomo Team Dandelion car. It is, you know.
Sam, I do have just a little bit of an update for you.
Yeah, Leigh, skip that. Just have a look at this.
It's an issue for Naoki Yamamoto. Was running fourth, clearly not anymore, going very, very slowly under the safety car. Now, that is interesting. I don't see any issues to my eye there.
No, but well, I could see one issue. He's not going very quick.
Well, my thought is that would... you don't really see penalties for drivers being dropped to the rear of the grid in Super Formula. That's more of an IndyCar thing. But I don't necessarily see to my eye any actual well, he's pitting, so it may actually be a drivetrain issue or something like that, because there's no immediately obvious issue.
Yeah, but that's the championship leader now coming in. Naoki Yamamoto took the championship lead in yesterday's race. Coming into the pits for an unknown reason. This isn't a standard pit stop. The pit window doesn't open for 4 laps, so this is not something he expects. But is this just this isn't a standard drive-through, because he went so slowly to the pits, and he comes up and straight into the garage and out of the race to the championship leader. Well, that is a real shock. Yesterday's race winner and points leader is out of this race. We don't know why, but that is a real surprise. Well. Like, this is exactly what was happening yesterday, Leigh. We were having a Super Formula race, but it took a while to get going with all of the safety cars. But despite the fact there was a lot of time under caution during yesterday's race, there was still a lot of action in the race. Now, the mechanics are all looking around the rear of the car. They're still sort of half-heartedly going to try and get him back out into this race, but having lost a lap in a 30-lap race, it's going to be a bit pointless to get him back on track.
I can tell you, Sam, I have just been sent a video from the grandstand of Sasha Fenestras touching the left rear of Kamui Kobayashi going into the chicane, causing Kamui Kobayashi to miss the chicane. Fenestras pick up damage and actually then slide sideways into the barrier.
You should send that to our producer, Leo Gorman, so we can watch it. We can all see it. Meanwhile, the lights on the safety car look like they have gone out, and Nick Cassidy is starting to back up the field and get ready to get going. So the safety car is going back round. Cassidy is backing up the field, and we're going to be back to green flag racing any moment. So the field is being backed up together. Cassidy is backing everybody up. He'll put the foot down any moment and get back to racing. This is the point where, well, let's have a look. Look at this. You can see them trying to get that engine. It looks like a transmission problem, doesn't it, for Yamamoto? But while we're watching Yamamoto, Cassidy's put his foot down, I think, and we're going back to green flag racing. There he goes into 130R. Cassidy's foot has gone down, but Oyu is really aware to it, and they're battling into the chicane already. They've got to be careful, though, because yellows breed yellows. Cautions breed cautions. This is an easy time to make a little mistake, as Fenestras did into that final chicane. So Tatiana Calderon has been asked. River Wells, is Tatiana Calderon racing right now? Yes, TAT is Tatiana Calderon, P15. For some reason, some drivers have their first names in abbreviation.
We've actually just seen Yuji Kunimoto make a fantastic move on Kazuki Nakajima, going around the outside of turn 1 with a little bit of assistance. That's for 6th and 7th place, Sam. That is actually a very, very, very good effort for Kunimoto, who's really looking to score some big points as we come to the business end of this season. Cassidy leading from Oyu, Fukuzumi 3rd, Sekiguchi 4th, Sho Suboi 5th place. I was mentioned in the pre-race, Sho Suboi's only scored once so far this season, Sam. That was a race win in Okayama. He'll be looking to add some more to that. Top 5 for him at the moment.
but he'll be wishing that they would have scored points for that pre-season esports race we had here on the-race.com. The race, of course, has that brilliant esports podcast as well, worth listening to during sessions between Super Formula races and Formula 1 races, which, of course, there's quite a lot of time between the two races today, which I'm very thankful for. Nonetheless, Nick Cassidy leading this race and looking really good in terms of championship positions. One of his rivals, Naoki Yamamoto, is in the garage with car trouble and will not score any points from this race. The other of his title rivals, Rio Hirakawa, is down in 9th position. He scored no points yesterday with that accident. And look into the chicane there. That is the other Raffinet-sponsored car. Xfinistrat is out of the race, getting passed there by one of the Team Impul cars going down start-finish line. That is Hirakawa, moving up to 8th position in car 20, but he is in prime position to be mugged on the way up to the Degners. Will Kenta Yamashita think better of it into turn 1? Yes, he does. But Hirakawa moving up to 8th. The reason the TV cameraman is following him is that this guy is in a championship winning, potentially, position in terms of points.
Sam Hirakawa, as you mentioned, second in the championship is Hirakawa. He's 5 points behind the championship leader, Naoki Yamamoto, who, as we've mentioned, is in the garage with a look, what potentially, you mentioned, looking like could be like either a transmission issue or something along those, or some sort of drivetrain issue at least. But the big score so far in this race, if it finishes as it is Nick Cassidy. He's third in the championship on 40 points. Well, actually, no. Yes, it would be 40 points. He would score 19 today if he were to continue and win this race, because he would actually have to drop the 4 points he earned for the race result at Autopolis earlier on this year.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been quite a varied calendar this year in Super Formula. Not the calendar we expected, but it's still pretty good one, as Cassidy is using that overtaking boost system there to get away from Toshiki Oyu. That's why that light is flashing so quickly. And then the slow flash where he can't use it, but he's just using it, that extra 100 seconds of overtaking boost that allowed taking it to 200 for this race, trying to get out a little bit of a gap, a little bit of breathing space ahead of Toshiki Oyu's Honda engine car and Nirei Fukazumi's Honda engine car. Yuki Sekiguchi,
that's Cassidy, that's Cassidy!
He's blown up. Yeah, that is an engine failure. That is a Toyota engine failure for the New Zealand driver. I thought I saw a little bit of smoke out the back of that car as he came down to 130R, and that engine has let go. And that'll probably bring out a safety car there. That is heartbreak for Cassidy, leading the race, and the engine lets go. That is absolutely stunning.
Disaster for Nick Cassidy. The engine blowing as he came out of the final corner, pulls off onto the side of the track. You're right, that will be a safety car, because the JCB is coming out to recover that car. It should be quick. Toshiki Oyu is now the leader of this race, the rookie driver. As you see, Kazuki Nakajima in the other team's Tom's car. He's going quite slowly.
I'm assuming
there's no safety car. There's no safety car yet. So Sam, this is actually real pace. He's dropping back down the other.
Yeah, that's the both Anthem Team Tom's cars in trouble there. One's got an engine failure, and Kazuki Nakajima has got a right rear puncture, a right rear failure on his car. He's coming back to the pits to get that changed. And the Tom's management have gone from looking great to absolutely nowhere. And it's just looking at that. Look at the right rear tyre there on Nakajima's car. The tyre has parted company with the wheel rim. Not quite sure if that was just a tyre failure or if there was something more to it. But if you look at the rest of his tyres, there's dirt on them. That's a telltale that he's been off the track somewhere. Was he provoked? Did he do it on his own? Nonetheless, he is coasting back to the pit lane. There's the safety car we all expected. And as you say, Toshiki Oyu leads this race. But the person who is coming out of this looking great, car 20, Rio Hirakawa, it looked terrible for him about 2 laps ago. Then we put Cursor, the commentator, on Nick Cassidy, saying that he looked really good for the championship points and the championship lead. And that Toyota Biz 001 4-cylinder turbo engine, let's go. Well, second safety car in the first 10 laps of the 2020 JAF Grand Prix Race 2 here on the-race.com. If you're enjoying this Super Formula action, don't forget to hit like, don't forget to hit subscribe, get chatting to us in the comments. And one comment that has come in from, I was talking about it momentarily, is has this series ever gone to circuits outside Japan? I don't believe it has properly. However, there is a lot of discussion with JRP, the organising body of this championship, about taking this race series perhaps to Thailand, perhaps to Malaysia, perhaps Indonesia, or one of the other countries in the territory. I'd like to know where on the Pacific Rim you'd like to see Super Formula racing, because for me, Super Formula around the Surfers Paradise Street Circuit would be great to see.
Sam, we have hit lap 10, which means the pit window's open. So I believe we may see most of the field actually crawl in. If I'm Kamui Kobayashi, though, I think, and I'm running last, and I've already actually only on tyres that are 5 laps old, I'm going to chance it. I'm going to stay out.
Well, Danny.com raises a good point about Cassidy's failure. You mentioned it in the pre-race show, Leigh. We were talking about those dropped scores. Cassidy, well, this is clearly going to be his worst score of the season so far. He's going to drop this score. He's still not out of that championship hunt, but this was looking so good for a race win. Now, Nakajima finally making it back to the pits with that damaged right rear. This will be his routine pit stop, and I don't believe he's lost the lead lap. No, he hasn't. And with everybody else heading for the pit lane, I suspect, you are going to see a lot of pit stops coming through. So because he's pitting on lap 10, Nakajima might just get away with this.
Actually, Sam, if Nakajima's nearly a lap behind, would it still be lap 9 for him?
I think you're right there, Leigh.
I think he may not have crossed the line to begin his 10th lap of the race yet. So
yeah.
I'll need to keep an eye on that. It may actually just bring him over, because I'm not entirely certain if that's supposed to be lap 10 of that particular driver or just lap 10 of the actual length of the race so far. But I mean, Kazuki Nakajima is pretty much the end of the, well, he is at the end of the lead lap. You know, he's a safety car now. Really well. This is what I was saying. I think one or two are going to stay out and actually try and go long, Sam.
Well, there was some confusion in the pit lane there. One of the cars went to the wrong pit box and then realised that wasn't his crew and had to duck out and duck around. The entire field, I think, is coming in for its routine pit stop. And everybody is in the pits. I didn't see anybody go past the pits whatsoever because we're right at the beginning of the pit window. I think everybody came to pit road.
No, there is 3 who stayed out. I believe one of the B-Max cars definitely stayed out. I'm not sure. Yeah, I think I just saw the back of the car. I didn't see which number it was. But you're right, most of the field would have pitted. Someone's going to have to take a bit of pain here, because in this situation, there's obviously going to be stacking in the pit lane as well.
Well, this could have been a good decision. Nobuharu Matsushita, you may remember him from European racing. He stayed out in the B-Max Racing Run car. He should be, at least on my workings out, take the lead of this race. Now, we've already seen 2 safety cars in this race. If there is another safety car in the next 10 or 15 laps, Matsushita could actually benefit from that. However, making sure he gets track position could be quite tricky. He will need to open up a gap on those older tyres versus the new tyres. It might not have been the best decision overall. We'll see how that plays out. But Matsushita, now the race leader from, I think Sasahara stayed out as well there, Leigh.
Yes, Sasahara stayed out. And the driver who I thought would actually stay out but didn't is Kamui Kobayashi. Kamui Kobayashi's come in and actually done his mandatory pit stop anyway on lap 10, which is a strange decision, because it's just left him down in 16th place.
He's going to race back through as only Kobayashi can. If anyone can, Kobayashi can.
Safety car driver's gotten a lot of laps this weekend.
He has. I mean, he's probably got more laps in. Well, he's got more laps in than Sasha Fenestras has, hasn't he?
Unfortunately, again, I mean, Fenestras, of course, got a points finish yesterday. He finished 10th after a poor qualifying. And what I did see is it wasn't... I think it was an attempt to overtake Kobayashi going into the chicane. Kobayashi kind of squeezed Fenestras slightly, maybe not too much, but they just collided and both went off. Unfortunately, race ending off for Fenestras.
Well, it's unusual pairing at the front of the field now if they both decide to stay out all the way through the safety car. Nobuharu Matsushita and Ukyo Sasahara. Ukyo Sasahara is one of the little bit of the discoveries of the 2020 racing season because of what's been going on in the rest of the world and drivers not able to take up seats as they normally expected. Sasahara found himself in a Super Formula seat, which he expected was actually Yuri Vips expected to drive that car, and he managed to find himself in that seat and has really made it his own this season, but also managed to find himself a seat in Super GT as well, and really has done well in that also. So he's been a bit of a revelation. Nobuharu Matsushita had been competitive at times in Formula 2 back in Europe, but has found a new career back in Japan because he wasn't going to be the next Yuki Tsunoda, who is Honda's star of choice at the moment. And we will find out this afternoon, this evening, tomorrow, depending on where you are, whether Tsunoda will get that AlphaTauri drive for 2021, but it's looking extraordinarily likely at the moment.
Just a note, actually, for Matsushita, Sam. He is confirmed to actually stay for the final round as well in Fuji in 2 weeks' time. Sergio Setakamara is not taking that seat for the rest of this season. I mean, it's unclear whether Honda still have some interest, of course, in Matsushita, but whether they will place him there for the whole of next season. Matsushita's future beyond 2020 is still very much up for question, but he's a quick driver. You know, he's no slouch by any stretch of the imagination, and he's still a driver who can achieve a lot in Super Formula and the likes around the world.
Well, just having a look at the chat, don't forget to hit like and subscribe here on the-race.com. A few suggestions of where people would like to see this series go in future. Not just Surfers Paradise, which was my idea, but Phillip Island, great suggestion as well. Sepang, I think that's probably not an impossible one. Super Formula Australia would be fun. Yeah, I think it probably would be. Macau, that would be wild. I think these cars are a bit too big and a bit too quick for Macau. That'd be quite difficult to overtake. And Beckmack says Super Formula at the Nordschleife. I actually don't think the Nordschleife would be particularly well suited to big single seaters like that. I don't think it's a particularly good circuit. It's a bit like Brands Hatch. Sounds fun, but actually the reality is that it's not. Well, look here, Matsushita backing up the field, coming back to bring us back to go back to green flag racing, I think, but he's left it very, very late to get going, and now they're battling down to the chicane, and Matsushita, it was in danger of catching the safety car before they come back to the pit lane, and yeah, he did actually catch it, but that is a rather messy restart, but Matsushita has played that quite well, and you've got Sasahara in second, Nakajima back there in third position.
He's lapped, Sam.
Watch out. He's a lap down, of course, yes.
So Oyu in currently third place and the highest placed pit driver. I think what happened there is that the safety car lights actually went off relatively early, but Matsushita kind of stayed as close as possible to the safety car until the very last moment and really didn't give the safety car driver enough time to actually get far enough up the circuit. But it was a gap between Sasahara and Oyu for 2 seconds, where Oyu, who's now got past Nakajima, Oyu really fell a couple of seconds behind. Fukuzumi, the white car there, he's the remaining Dandelion-powered Honda. He's in fourth place at the moment. It's a Honda 1, 2, 3, 4 as it stands at the moment, led by Matsushita at the front. He has not pitted. Sasahara, who's second place, has not pitted. Oyu in the driver's seat as it stands at the moment, 13 laps into this 30-lap race. He has pitted. The gap needs to be around 30 to 35 seconds, Sam.
Yeah, and Oyu's looking good at the moment, though he's 2.5 seconds back off the race leader at the moment. There is a lapped car in the middle of that, Nakajima. I'm surprised they didn't actually give him the wave by in that situation, because he's a quick car now, he's back on the right tyres, and he's going to be getting blue flags and waved back past everybody, as you're seeing him getting out of the way. But that car isn't slow, and I think a lot of the cars catching him up will probably be thinking, oh, I'm racing him. Oh, no, he's a lap down, and I've just used my overtaking boost for that.
I think that's exactly what happened with Sekiguchi. Sekiguchi went up behind Nakajima to almost seem to get a draft, but Nakajima was off the pace, so Sekiguchi's had to make a last-moment change of direction to get past. as we see Matsushita working hard, 1 second ahead of Sasahara. Oyu's just sitting there at the moment as we see a change for position there. That is one of the Ing cars.
It's Kunimoto on Sho Suboi.
Yeah, Sho Suboi, that is for 6th and 7th positions. Kunimoto, 6th in the championship, showing a reasonably well showing. He hasn't been necessarily looked like a race winner so far this year, but you know, pulling in some decent results. He's doing solidly well as a former champion in this category, of course, and back in 2016. Podium yesterday, though. I mean, to be fair, only 13 cars finished yesterday. We've already missing 3 from today.
H for Honda powered, T for Toyota. The top 4 are all Honda powered. Then there's a bunch of Toyota powered cars. There's the battle for P8, and that is the battle for those Toyota positions, but with a Honda interloper on the back of the pack there. That battle is going to rage all race long. Matsushita at the front, Sasahara, they both owe us a pit stop. Toshiki Oyu in the car number 65 TCS Nakajima racing car, 3rd position. 4th is Fukuzumi, then Sekiguchi, shows Yuji Kunimoto, Sho Suboi, Kenta Yamashita. Hirakawa in car 20 is the man to watch, back in at 9th position at the moment. He needs to move up the field and make advantage, but that's not how you move up the field, by going down a position to Nojiri and falling down to 10.
So that's a strange position, a strange place to lose a position. He's lost another position, Sam.
Yeah.
I think there may be an issue. It's very, very unusual for a car to go around the inside of Sasahara. Makes a move on Matsushita for the lead. Neither of them have stopped. Matsushita holds the inside, but Sasahara's on the outside. Will he maintain his foot? No, he doesn't. Well, he did. He actually went off. That is wheel-to-wheel stuff there from Matsushita, who had a difficult lap last time around, and it gave the young Japanese racer an opportunity to go for the lead, but not going to happen this time around. Sasahara has lost some time, but did Oyu actually be able to take advantage? I'm not sure that he did. Something happened with Matsushita on that lap to lose well over a second to the cars behind him, Sam.
Yeah, and that's putting Sasahara back into the clutches of the guy in 3rd position. Toshiki Oyu is going to be right on the back of Sasahara. This is the battle of the young talent in Japan right now. Matsushita held on to the lead there. I thought I was just about to say, well, this is what Red Bull want to see from one of their young drivers, Sasahara, going round the outside of an established talent like Matsushita, but he didn't make it work. That's that's enthusiasm over experience there, I suspect.
Sasahara did lose the Matsushita did lose the guts of a second somewhere on that lap last time around. But of course, Sasahara this time around has lost even more time by going off into the exit of turn 2. Interestingly enough, now we're looking back at Hirakawa, who lost the position to Yamashita there. Hirakawa lost 2 positions in the pit stops there, Sam. I think he may have been the ones who was actually stacked in the pit lane and lost out as they were waiting for the pit lane cycle, as it were. Najiri's up to 8th place. He's escaping from that battle, and it's a fast approaching Sho Suboi to maybe get a 7th place here. Of course, Najiri lost out massively yesterday. He had originally qualified 2nd, but then had an issue on the way to the grid and ended up actually dropping to the complete rear of the field, and wasn't able to take advantage. He still did come across in 7th place to get 4 points, but it really wasn't what he was looking for at the start of yesterday.
Now, Toshiki Oyu is stalking down the Red Bull Team Mugen Honda entry of Ukyo Sasahara. He doesn't need to. I wonder if the team have been onto the radio to him and say, look, you don't need to worry too much about Sasahara. He owes us a pit stop. If you catch him and he's slowing you down, pass him, but don't worry too much. You need to worry about Fukuzumi behind you. He's the driver to keep a watch for. It's interesting seeing all of these old names that we got used to hearing in Formula 2, and then these young drivers coming up like Oyu and Sasahara coming up from Japan. It's like a changing of the guard right now when you see Matsushita and Fukuzumi racing Sasahara and Oyu. And then you've got Sekiguchi and Kunimoto, who are a different generation altogether of young Japanese talent coming up through the series. It's a little bit of an illustration of the mix that is Super Formula. But look at this. Rio Hirakawa, his roll hoop bar has gone red, which even with that extra allocation of overtaking boost, he's using it all up just to get ahead of Kenta Kenta Yamashita here. And Yamashita, without using too much to defend, has just managed to stay in front into the chicane. But Hirakawa is in great position to get a toe down the start-finish straight, pull across and try and get the move done around the outside of turn 1 here at Suzuka. You can do it, but not like that.
That was very, very, very close in the chicane. But Hirakawa, to be fair, he's got a championship battle to fight. He doesn't want to lose points through unnecessary contact, but at the same time, he's down in 10th place. He needs to make moves to make hay while the sun is shining. His championship rivals, both of them, Nick Cassidy and Naoki Yamamoto, are out of this race. He needs to score and really get his title run back on track. Yamashita 9th, Hirakawa 10th. They're running very, very, very close. Hirakawa desperately wants that Kondo racing car out of the way so he can actually try and challenge Nojiri, who passed both of them a few laps ago.
But look at the roll hoop of Hirakawa's car. There's no light on it whatsoever. The light has gone out. He has used up all 200 seconds of overtaking boost already before half distance, while the car in front of Hirakawa, Kenta Yamashita, his roll hoop is still green. He still has overtaking boost left, like pretty much everybody else in the field. So that will leave really badly exposed Hirakawa to everybody else around him, because he will not be able to use the overtaking boost system to either defend or attack. And you can see the car behind Hirakawa, Makino now, Tadasuke Makino, his roll hoop overtaking system is deployed. He's hunting down Hirakawa, and Hirakawa may have no defense to another one of these young Japanese stars.
But how would Hirakawa use up so much overtaking boost so early in the race? We would normally see last year in a standard Super Formula race, drivers would maybe run out of their 100 seconds relatively close to the checkered flag. But this is a shorter race. All the races this year are shorter because of the restrictions that have been put in place. How is Hirakawa used 200 seconds worth of overtake this early in the race, unless there's an actual issue with the deployment on his car?
Well, no, it looked like he was using it properly, because we did see the change of colours through the system. So it was, the roll hoop bar was red and then it went out. So that was just, he used it all up by the half distance of the race, which we are now past. We're still waiting for pit stop from Matsushita and Sasahara at the front of the field. This lad, Toshiki Oyu, he has been, well, he's been a remarkable driver this year in both Super GT and Super Formula, not for his on-track pace, but more for his propensity to bump into other cars on the circuit. But right now, he's looking like he's coming into his own at Suzuka, and that is very good, because the Honda management will be looking on at this young driver, looking out what to do for his future. But look who's behind him, Nirei Fukuzumi, another one of those young Honda drivers. He was taken out of the European program, the Formula Dream program, brought back to Japan to come and race Fly's Trade in Super GT and Super Formula. That's Honda's established star. So Oyu and Fukuzumi, this is a battle to impress the management.
Fukuzumi, this is actually an important race for him as well. He's only scored one podium so far in his Super Formula career. This, of course, being his second season in Super Formula. That podium, that single podium he's achieved, was here last year. He got third place in the season finale. This, at the moment, is looking like a net. Say, oh, there's an off, and I'm back on track. That is Kunimoto, I believe. I think that's Kunimoto, who's lost it completely. Yeah, it is Kunimoto who lost it completely. It went spiraling across the gravel. There's drivers coming through absolute dust for a moment. They're not going to be able to see a single thing.
Well, he's stuck there. He's beached on the gravel.
That's a safety car again, Sam. That is another safety car, because he can't be left there. They're going to have to bring another digger out to get rid of that car. Fortunately, though, the entrance point to the escape part is actually very, very close. It's actually just near. You can actually see where the JCB is coming out now. So it doesn't have. This should actually be a relatively quick clear up, but it is a safety car. Was that a puncture? Another puncture? It is. It's another right rear puncture.
Well, that's interesting. That's becoming a bit of a trend, isn't it?
How many punctures have we had this weekend?
Well, we saw that puncture. I'm not sure about practice and qualifying, but we saw that puncture that saw that shunt in free practice in the race yesterday at 130R. But we also saw a puncture there for Nakajima. That's a surprise. So those the cars in first and second, as expected. come to the pit, but the gap wasn't big enough, and they will be shuffled back down to the back of the order. So Toshiki Oyu will now be in the lead of the race. These guys who are pitting, it's not gone their way. So those who pitted earlier under the first safety car, they've got the advantage over these cars. So Sasahara, he'll fall to the back of the field.
It's unfortunate. It's not really worked out for them at all. They may be... Yeah, they are going to fall pretty much right to the back, aren't they? So, yeah, forget what I was about to say, because there's obviously complete nonsense as we see Kunimoto, and there is the rear of the field. That is Kobayashi coming through. Matsushita is now going to be running last alongside Sasahara. Sasahara must be absolutely kicking himself, because he was actually running relatively well in yesterday's race until that massive shunt he had with the Hirakawa. Now we're going to see Kunimoto. The tyre's gone there in the middle of the corner, and it's just flung him around, basically. What's lucky is this. Very, very, very good driving there by Sho Suboi, having to slam on the brakes. So he also got a whole series of other drivers coming through, driving hard through the dust. And Kunimoto with his head in his hands, he knows he's lost vital points. And I think, to be fair, Kunimoto, he was very much an outside shot for the championship, Sam.
But this was a great opportunity for him, but that tyre going down. I mean, to see that it's an unusual situation in this series. We don't often see tyre failures. The Yokohama tyres have performed brilliantly, but right now there's a number of drivers who feel that way. I mean, that body language says it all, really, about the tyre. Nick Cassidy, though, he knows how this feels. He had an engine failure earlier in this race, which also is an extremely unusual thing in Super Formula. So Cassidy, it doesn't really dent his championship hopes too much. It just makes it a little bit tougher. With one race to go, he's got it all to do still, but it's still in the ballpark. However, Hirakawa, he is looking like it is a little bit of a nice day out for him. They're currently sitting down in 9th. He was struggling a little bit of a pace before this safety car came out.
That will be 7th now, Sam, because the former race leaders, Matsushita and Sasahara, have now made their mandatory stops. So it would have been 9th with the retirement of Kunimoto, but now 7th. But that's still only 4 points for Hirakawa. Let's not get overly excited. It'll be a welcome 4 points, maybe, given the retirement of his 2 main challengers, but he was expecting a lot more this weekend. And there's a driver who was probably not expecting to necessarily be leading this race, given how it was going earlier on. Toshiki Oyu, he's actually showed quite a lot of good qualifying pace. He's qualified in the top 5 3 times already. He started today's race from 7th place, but have not really been able to turn those into big results. He had a mechanical issue in the first round at Motegi. He had an accident in the second round at Okayama that left him down the rear of the field. He was 12th in Sugo. He got a point, his first point of the season last weekend out in Autopolis, and then yesterday he finished 8th to score a few more points. So slowly but surely, he's getting his collection of races together. As I said earlier on this year, he needs to finish races. And now that he is actually beginning to finish races, he's picking up some small points. This would be a nice big collection for him today, if he can hold it. But he's going to be keeping his eye out on Fukuzumi, who's just behind. And let's not forget Yuki Sekiguchi in 3rd place. And Sho Suboi, who won the second round at Okayama earlier on this year, running 4th. Then you got Tomoki Nojiri, who had a horrible qualifying, won last time out in Autopolis, and he had started 2nd yesterday. He was hoping for a big result. He had only qualified right down the order in 17th today. He's actually 5th.
Well, it's a good moment just to take a look at the other content coming up on the-racer.com. Don't forget all the action and the coverage and news, reviews and views from the Sakhir Grand Prix later tonight, this evening, tomorrow afternoon. And the podcasts are well worth tuning into as well. There'll be a very good post-Sakhir Grand Prix podcast from the race that will give you all the comprehensive coverage of every aspect of Grand Prix racing, discussion of latest breaking news, debates about the biggest topics, and in-depth analysis of after each Grand Prix. You can get these all from your normal pod providers, whatever one of those is. There's your championship points on the screen in real time, but the dropped scores make everything a little bit more confusing. Formula E, get the inside track on all things Formula E with Jack Nichols and the-race.com Sam Smith, and MotoGP, that's Simon Patterson and Toby Moody and special guests. I wonder if it's Valentino Rossi. And Gary Anderson, he talks about designing racing cars in the 1990s as well. He's giving his views on designing racing cars in the 21st century. Bring back V10s, a series all entirely dedicated to Ed Straw saying the word Osella. Hidden Voices, Claire Cottingham, who reads the news on Jazz FM, also takes a look at diversity in motorsport. And then, of course, I mentioned it earlier, the esports podcast, talking about the talking points in the booming world of motorsports, esports, brought to you by the-race.com. Don't forget the hyphen.
Sam, I'm not sure that points total we saw on screen a moment ago is actually correct, because I don't think it actually took into account dropped scores for Najiri and Cassidy. Cassidy, I don't think he'll get those 3 points for the pole position, because of course the dropped scores, I believe, take into account the entire weekend score as opposed to just the race. Please correct me if I'm wrong in that.
I don't actually know the answer to that, Leigh. I hadn't considered that one. Nirei Fukuzumi sitting in second position there. I had forgotten about the points, whether it's the race weekend point or the race points. That is something we'll have to go to JRP and just get clarification on. We'll work it all out for the final round of the championship. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we'll work it out probably in 2021, after which point it'll all be done and dusted anyway. My belief it was the race weekend, but of course I am, do correct me if I am wrong at that. One driver who certainly won't drop scores this weekend, should he score a maximum score, is Toshiki Oyu. We're going to have another lap or so under the safety car, because they have cleared the stricken car of Yuji Kunimoto now, and then he'll really only have 6 or 7 laps to fend off Fukuzumi and Sekiguchi et al.
Well, I think we should be going back to green flag racing at the end of this lap. But look at that. You can see it on your screen. This is lap 22 of 30. And the race has really followed a very similar pattern to yesterday's race 1 of the JAF Grand Prix here in the 2020 Super Formula season on therace.com, the-race.com. Because it's been a dash, it's been different dashes between different caution periods. It's a little bit more like a NASCAR race than a normal open wheel road course race, but nonetheless it has been pretty entertaining, with a field being closed up repeatedly by the safety car. And it's going to be a little bit of a last minute dash to the cash once again, a little bit more than we had yesterday, and I think we're going to see some change of positions. Can Toshiki Oyu hold off Nirei Fukuzumi and Sekiguchi and Shosuboi for the race win? Suboi, for me, and that Toyota-powered Dallara, is the car to watch, as we just had a little look at the rear end of Tatiana Calderon and her Dallara.
Tatiana Calderon's running in 11th place, Sam. She'll be hoping for maybe an overtake or two, maybe an incident just ahead of her to finally get her off the... Toshiki Oyu slammed on the brakes there. Fukuzumi nearly went into the back of him. Third car on the list there, of course, as I mentioned, is Yuki Sekiguchi. He'll be hoping for a race win in either today or next time out in Fuji to actually maintain a run. He's won a race in every single season of Super Formula he's competed in so far. So, he'll be looking to kind of extend that run, particularly as he's not had a great year so far.
Jump in on you here, Leigh, because Toshiki Oyu is backing the field right up to get ready to go for green flag racing. He's really backing them up, a bit like Valtteri Bottas did at Mugello. Now his foot's gone down in that Honda-powered Dallara. Goes into 130R flat out, trying to accelerate all the way through down to the chicane. Fukuzumi is not going to be happy with that, because Sekiguchi was right on his tail there. He's going to try and get a run down into the first corner. He's a bit too far back to do it. That worked by Toshiki Oyu, but I don't think the other drivers were too happy with Oyu's driving there. He's whacked on that overtaking boost system, trying to get a gap away from Fukuzumi, who's used up his boost for that little section. And you can see a few other drivers trying to go around the outside there. That was Kunimoto. Makino rather, trying to go round the outside of Rio Hirakawa in the number 20 car, and didn't quite get that done. But Hirakawa there under attack from behind. It's going to be a little bit tense on the way to the finish.
I think the biggest complaint some of the drivers will have will be the way Toshiki Oyu almost slammed on the brakes coming through Spoon, because that really nearly did catch Narei Fukuzumi out. They could have actually had an accident there and gifted the lead to Sekiguchi. But as it stands, Oyu leads, Fukuzumi second, Sekiguchi in third, Sho Suboi fourth, Tomoki Nojiri fifth place. Then you've got Kenta Yamashita saving the day, as it were, for Kondo Racing in sixth place. Hirakawa, as you mentioned, fending off Makino. That's over seventh and eighth place. Kazuyo Oshima ninth, and Hiroki Ishura rounding out the point scores at the moment in 10th place.
Something relatively unusual to see, not unknown, but unusual to see in Super Formula. An all-Japanese top 10, the best placed foreign driver. That's Yana Calderon.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So as we see the drivers coming down towards 130, they've spread out really the top three. As you see, Sho Suboi close to Sekiguchi. He may have a run coming through the. As we see an overtake there, or an attempt to overtake. Was that Oshima? That is Oshima trying to make a move on Makino for 8th place. Makino tried to have a go on Hirakawa's second goal. Meanwhile, it's Sekiguchi fending off Sho Suboi, but he does so at the moment. The gap really only down to just over 0.3 of a second. As we saw, Sho Suboi got really close through the chicane, and that seems to be where Sekiguchi's weakest is, his weak point at the moment.
It looks to me like Sekiguchi's used up his overtaking boost system there, Leigh, and Sho Suboi's got plenty left, so this could be a little bit challenging for the Hoshino Racing crew. They have used up there, and that's why Hoshino-san is looking a little bit. Yeah, there's confirmation. Look at the roll hoop. It's pretty clear. 19 car has no more boost left, and the car behind him with that slow flashing green light. Oh no, maybe there's a little bit. I think I just saw a red light on the roll hoop there just momentarily for the 19 car team import car. But Sho Suboi has a lot more overtaking boost, and he'll use that to his advantage. I don't think Sekiguchi will be able to hold off the Toyota-powered car of Sho Suboi. Will he be able to then go after Fukuzumi and Toshiki Oyu up the front of the field? Hard to say, but they are battling at the front as well. It's getting a little bit toasty up there.
Sam, if you're an attacking driver, when is the best time or place to actually activate the overtaking boost? Is it exactly on corner exit, or do you wait till the engine spools up and you're down a straight?
Well, I think we're seeing a good example of here, running down the west stretch here at Suzuka is a good place to do it. You get that, it sets you up for this run into the chicane and get the job done around the outside. Textbook stuff there from that team import car.
That's Hirakawa actually taking Kenta Yamashita. Kenta Yamashita now trying to go back around, and he does. He drove straight past Hirakawa there.
And that is the overtaking boost system at work there, Leigh.
And Hirakawa actually just taking the inside line of the circuit, maybe not maybe not defending as vigorously as he normally would, but as you said, he did. Kenta Yamashita did have the overtaking boost on operation there. Hirakawa back down to 7th place.
Now, this overtaking boost system, it's a bit unique to Super Formula with the flashing lights on the roll hoop and everything, but it's had it for quite a long time. Even back to the Formula Nippon days, they have these overtake systems installed. But they did try and do it with hybrids for a while, but it was too heavy and they decided it wasn't helping the racing. But this is something that could easily be introduced to Formula One, and it wouldn't shock me if Braun and his team would be looking at something like this. I know they are looking very much outside the bounds of Formula One to introduce new things to spice up the sport going forwards, and this, because it gives you a little bit of extra fuel flow, this is something that could be used in Round3 racing as well. I don't know, I'm not convinced about that, but it does work very well here in Super Formula. 5 laps to go here at Suzuka Circuit on the-race.com. We're coming to the end of race 2 of the 2020 JAF Grand Prix, and it's going to be a thrilling finish, mostly because of these two. Don't forget to hit like, forget to hit subscribe. And Fukuzumi and Toshiki Oyu are battling for the race win here at Suzuka. Not very far to go. A little bit further back, there's Sekiguchi, Sho Suboi, Nojiri, Kenta Yamashita. They're your points leader. Rio Hirakawa. He's been having a difficult few days of it in motor racing. First, losing out the Super GT Championship this time last week in a sensational style. You can watch that here on the-race.com. So hit like and hit subscribe after this race. For Formula One, you've got plenty of time to review that's what happened there. But you've also got behind him Tadasuke Makino and Oshima. They're not too far behind. They could spoil his day, take points out of him, and make his championship hopes against Nick Cassidy a little bit harder. Cassidy, of course, out earlier in the race with that failed Toyota engine. Spectacular style. But the battle at the front right now, you're not seeing it on your screen, is between Oyu and Fukuzumi. Less than half a second between those two cars.
Sam, I've just actually had a message saying that yes, the points dropped. It covers the entire an entire weekend. So Cassidy would lose the 3 points he had banked for pole position this weekend. So he will stick on 46 points.
But here's the battle for the race lead. You can see that slow flashing roll hoop light on a second place car of Fukuzumi. It means he used his overtaking boost system to try and close the gap up on Toshiki Oyu. Now Toshiki Oyu has used his overtaking boost system to stay ahead of Fukuzumi. Can be used, of course, to defend against another car. There, Tatiana Calderon is defending against Charles Milesi and Uko Sasahara back there. And then we see this team Impul car of Hirakawa, I think that is, in the number 20. No, it's not. It's the number 19 car of Sekiguchi, still defending against Sho Suboi. And Sho Suboi, I'm surprised it's taken him this long to get past, actually, Sekiguchi, and he's losing a huge amount of time as a result.
And Sekiguchi really defending very aggressively coming into turn one there, switching back across the circuit to make sure he got on the racing line for the first right-hander there. Sho Suboi does seem to have extra pace coming down to start-finish straight. As you said, the roll hoop bar on Sekiguchi's car is red at the moment, and Sho Suboi still has some overtaking boost left. But not able to finalise a move yet. Sekiguchi is defending and defending hard. And
that red light, of course, means it's not completely run out, but it means there's not much left. He's got very few seconds of that 200-second allowance left, whereas Sho Suboi's got quite a lot of that allowance left. Will be using it to great effect. So I think you'll see that light flashing very quickly, imminently. There you go for the race leader, though. Toshiki Oyu using his overtaking boost to stay ahead of Fukuzumi, who's using his to close up. They've both got green lights on the roll hoop, so they've both got plenty of overtaking system left, and they're going to be pressing that button at every opportunity on these final few laps of Suzuka circuit. Toshiki Oyu there hitting the button again as he came out of the chicane. Both of them now flashing slowly, so they can't use them. Oyu will be able to see the light flashing slowly on the Docomo Team Dandelion car in at second position, but he knows that he's got to do everything to stay ahead and get his debut Super Formula victory. Now the battle further down the field, that's the Inging Motorsports car of Sho Suboi now having defense against Nojiri, who's come up to the back of him. And there's Uko Sasahara having to get defensive. There's battles right throughout the field now.
I think that might have actually been Tatiana Calderon fighting with Hiroki Ashura over the final points paying position. Of course, Tatiana Calderon would dearly love to get that final point for her Drago Racing, Drago Corsa team. It's a single car entry team. It's a very, very difficult proposition to be a single car entry in Super Formula, given the strength and nature of these cars.
The Drago Modulo Corsa team, of course, runs in GT500 in Super GT. So well worth not underestimating that team. I wouldn't be too surprised to see them expand out to a two-car entry next year. Lots of speculation that perhaps some of the drivers who couldn't find a seat in Formula One in 2021 may find their way to Super Formula in next season, and perhaps a few more cars on the grid as well.
You won't be referring to potentially a young British driver there by any chance, would you?
Well, I've sent the details.
2 laps left, Sam. 2 laps left. Toshiki Oyu leads from Narei Fukuzumi. The gap is less than 1 second as it stands, but Fukuzumi not getting quite close enough to really pressurize Oyu into a mistake. In the background, you have Yuki Sekiguchi, who's been dropped very much, 8 seconds. And I think he's just dropped Sho Suboi to a small degree as well. We may be looking at the final podium positions, but Fukuzumi is still going to charge and challenge for that race win until the checkered flag. But Oyu is doing a fantastic job keeping the lead at bay. Oyu setting his fastest lap of the race only a few laps to go. The pace hasn't dropped. It's still in the 1:39s, and while we have had some safety car laps, we haven't really seen excessive tyre wear so far this weekend.
Yeah, we really haven't, and the tyres are holding up well to this race. The best lap there you can see from Nirei Fukuzumi, though, was a 38.8, and that wasn't that long ago. But his pace isn't quite there at the moment. He needs to get much closer to the back of Toshiki Oyu to have any chance of making this work. Coming out of Spoon, he's nowhere near, but he'll hit the overtaking boost system about now and try to close up on the back of him as he comes down the start-finish straight. Interestingly, he hasn't hit that button yet, so the light is not flashing. I think he's saving it all up for the final lap to try and get a final run on Oyu, but Oyu's seen that one coming as well, and he's waiting to use it to defend. I think it's going to be a stalemate. He's certainly closing up in that final run. He's trying to pressure Oyu onto the final lap, trying to make a mistake. And, well, look at them there together. You're going to see those lights flashing any moment as they start getting close, as we enter the final lap of the 2020 JAF Grand Prix.
That may have been one of Fukuzumi's final opportunities. He will get a second chance on the exit of Spoon going down the long straight that leads into 130, or that will be it. I would have assumed he may have got an attempted to overtake going down the start-finish straight, but it hasn't really worked for him so far in the last few laps. So maybe he is looking at the opportunity on that back straight to pressurize Oyu and attempt to go for the lead. The gap is only half a second. Fukuzumi needs to be closer on this final lap if he is to effect an overtake for the lead.
Well, he's got the overtaking boost system. The button is basically welded to the steering wheel now to try and give Fukuzumi any opportunity to get onto terms with Toshiki Oyu. But Oyu has just been driving his own race, getting on with it, and staying just far enough ahead of the Docomo Team Dandelion car to make this one work. But this is Super Formula. Last time into Spoon Corner, Toshiki Oyu now has just got to get down the west stretch through 130R and the chicane, and he will take his debut Super Formula victory. And what a victory that would be to win the JAF Grand Prix. His lights have gone red. They're both using the overtaking boost system. It doesn't matter now that he hasn't got much boost left, unless anything goes catastrophically wrong. He's just got to get these few hundred meters sorted. Last minute lunge from Fukuzumi wasn't enough. And there you go, Toshiki Oyu crosses the line to take victory at the JAF Grand Prix of 2020. His debut Super Formula race win. And I think that second position car, Nirei Fukuzumi, was gutted by that.
I think he's just going very, very slow. I hope he hasn't run out of fuel there, but a fantastic job by Toshiki Oyu, taking his first win of the season ahead of Nirei Fukuzumi. Yuki Sekiguchi completing the podium just ahead of Sho Suboi in 4th place. Tomoki Nojiri comes back from a disappointing qualifying to take 5th place. Kenta Yamashita 6th. Rio Hirakawa now going to be joint championship leader again with Naoki Yamamoto, while Tadasuke Makino has 8th place, only 1/10 of a second ahead of Kazuya Oshima. Hiroki Ishura takes the final points paying position. That was just ahead of Ukyo Sasahara, who took Tatiana Calderon late in the race. Charles Malaysia has come home 13th ahead of Matsushita, whose pit strategy didn't quite work for him. He was 14th. Kamui Kobayashi's 15th. He had a puncture earlier on and 1 lap behind. I believe the final finisher should be Kazuki Nakajima. But right now, it's all eyes on Toshiki Oyu taking his first win in Super Formula. Fantastic job for the 22-year-old Japanese racer. He's had race wins in Japanese Formula 3 He finished 4th there last season. Also had 2 wins in Euro Formula Open last season as well. And of course, he's also been a race winner in Japanese Formula 4 a few years ago. A Honda junior driver, and one the Honda are very much looking to for the future. That future may not necessarily be in Formula 1, Sam, but he has so many opportunities in Japan and a very, very bright future ahead. I said earlier on this season he needed to sort out his racing. His qualifying pace was there. He's started slowly but surely to pick up race results. This race win could be the thing that actually really makes Toshiki Oyu.
Well, Honda are not permanently gone from Formula 1. I'm pretty certain, I'm hearing pretty strongly that they're going to be back sooner rather than later. It's pretty much as soon as the new regulations come in, I suspect you will see Honda back in the Formula 1 fold. So these drivers are not racing without a hope of getting to F1. And Toshiki Oyu, with performances like he's put in today, could be in a good position for that going forwards. What a good win for him. Sasha Fenestras, though, will be looking on, probably feeling a little bit less than happy for Oyu, who was, shall we say, encountered Fenestras this season, somewhat.
It's one way of putting it, I suppose.
Yes. But Oyu has, nonetheless, redeemed himself. He's sorted out his racing and got this brilliant race win in the JAF Grand Prix. This is going to mean a lot to the young Japanese driver. And young Japanese drivers was the story of the 2020 JAF Grand Prix, as the Europeans all faltered. We saw Tatiana Calderon losing places towards the end of the race. Sasha Fenestras crashing out with Kamui Kobayashi at the chicane. Nick Cassidy with that unexpected engine failure. So
that's something you really almost never see in Super Formula, Sam, as engine failures like that.
Well, I mean, these engines are designed for Super GT as well as Super Formula, and they are pretty reliable. It's almost unheard of for an engine to fail like that, and it will be interesting to see what Cassidy will say about that on Twitter later on.
Because Cassidy, with that retirement, he's got one more race in Super Formula. He's moving to Formula E next year. We're not entirely sure yet whether he will be doing double duty. My understanding is it may not be in Super Formula if he does do any double duty. The door, I believe, is still open potentially for him to race in Super GT. But you see tears there from Toshiki Oyu. Happy tears, obviously, taking his race win, and what a race win. And even if he had finished second behind Nick Cassidy today, it would have been a very, very positive result for the young Japanese racer. But when Nick Cassidy's Toyota engine blew up and gave Oyu the lead, Oyu, okay, there'll be question marks about the safety car restart, but everything else he did today was absolutely spot on.
Yeah, he's done a good job, and you can see how much that means to him. But this isn't his last chance of the season to grab a race win as well. He could make it too. The next Super Formula race isn't all that long away. We've got just a couple of weeks to wait, and there is the championship finale, and we will be crowning the 2020 Super Formula champion here on the-race.com. So hit like, hit subscribe, and stay tuned to this channel to watch that. And whilst a Japanese man is crying and getting congratulations from more experienced Japanese men doing the mandatory finger photo, it's worth saying the words we always do at this point, and they are, of course, hit like, hit subscribe, and when he stops crying, we will be hearing from Toshiki Oyu, but I'm not sure it's going to be the most informative interview because he's, well, clubbing, quite frankly.
And, you know, Nakajima Racing getting both cars in the points. Makino, this is actually a comeback for Oyu yesterday, who had a collision with his teammate, Tadazuki Makino. Oyu still got points yesterday. Makino, a little bit of a more difficult day today, however. He still scored points. He finished 8th, if I remember now off the top of my head. So, yeah.
That was nice. Big congratulations there from Naoki Yamamoto for Toshiki Oyu, and that one meant a lot when you see congratulations from a guy like that, who is the accepted master of this circuit and the Honda drivers. And to see Toshiki Oyu being congratulated by him. He's gonna regret these photos, I think, a little bit because he's blubbing away in front of the camera. But actually, he's not going to care, is he? He's just won the Jap Grand Prix. What a way to win your first Super Formula race.
As I said, he pretty much did everything. You know, you can say that maybe he only picked up the race win because of Cassidy's retirement, but at the same time, he did everything he needed to do. He was quick where he needed to be. He was aggressive where he needed to be. He defended well where he needed to. So it's a positive result. It is a positive result for Toshiki Oyu in more ways than one.
Yeah, it really is. And, you know, sometimes you see this with racing drivers. They get that first win on, and it suddenly transforms everything. Something clicks in their head, and they start becoming a real force to be reckoned with. Toshiki Oyu's been a bit of a wild driver, as we've seen, and that could be an indication that he's going to be really something special going forwards. Meanwhile, look at Nirei Fukuzumi. He's absolutely gutted. He's furious with himself for this one.
But Sam, I also wonder if he's actually quite irritated as well by the restart from the safety car several laps ago, where he actually almost went into the back of Oyu at Spoon Corner.
I mean, that is not the look. I mean, the way he's pacing around, it's a little bit like a caged tiger, isn't it? He is really unhappy. He's not had the conversation with Oyu. He's still crying. Blimey. I mean, he needs a tissue sponsor, doesn't he?
And Satoru Nakajima, of course, a 5-time champion as a driver himself at this level. Fukuzumi has very much kept his distance from Toshiki Oyu since they've come into Parc Fermé. Definitely not happy at all. That is Takuma Sato congratulating Oyu as well, the 2-time Indianapolis 500 winner, and former British Formula 3 champion as well, actually.
I'm genuinely quite surprised that Sato didn't actually have a run out in this race, because there were a lot of rumours that he was going to enter this race at Suzuka just as a bit of fun, bit of promotional stuff, and run the one of the spare Honda engine cars, which there are a number of them. But here we're about to hear from Toshiki Oyu, and well, it's basically going to say, oh, thank you so much.
鈴鹿制しました。大湯俊樹選手です。おめでとうございます。
Congratulations, Toshiki Oyu. You won the race. Thank you, he says.
終盤近い世代の福住二玲選手と
It's a very tight-fitting mask.
迫ってきました。どんな心境だったんですか？
It's really tight.
本当にずっとペースはあまり良くなくて。
Looks like a very strange music video.
後ろの福住選手
Does,
は
yeah.
すごい追い上げ
The
て
hair's surely in his eyes as
分か
well.
ってたんですけど、まあレース中も本当に辛くて、
I mean,
いつ抜かれるかと思って、
I'm not one to
まあ
talk.
なんとかこらえてたっていう感じです。
よく頑張ってましたね。
But yeah, so Toshiki Oyu. So Leigh, I mean, we're looking at Toshiki Oyu's.
今までの
I've just seen the comment from our producer. Yes, Leigh, do you actually cry in Coronation Street?
そしてフィニッシュした後、ここに戻ってきて、先ほど中島監督と会いました。 なんていう声を
Coronation
かけら
Street
れ
is
た
a
んですか？
British television program for people living in the North of England.
まあ普
It's
通にや
about
れ
people
ば
living in the North of England as
こうやっ
well.
て結果が出るんだってことを
Toshiki Oyu, he's obviously racing in the Super GT, or did race in the 2020 Super GT season for Autobac's racing team Aguri in GT300. He was racing one of the NSX GT300 cars and finished 4th in the GT300 championship. But in Super GT, winning Satoru Nakajima coming in to say he did well.
ルーキーの大湯選手がこんな素晴らしい走りをしました。
That's basically what he's saying.
Satoru Nakajima also with a very, very tight mask.
It must be it's a look. So I'm looking back over Toshiki Oyu's career, and 2019 he was 4th in the Japanese Formula 3 Championship, and as you mentioned, Leigh, he did the Euro Formula Open briefly, finished 16th at the Macau Grand Prix in 2018, and this is really one of the biggest results of his career, to be honest. He hasn't won a huge amount of races in his career coming up, a few Japanese F4 races, and the last time he won a race were those 2 races he did in the 2019 Euro Formula Open, and then 1 race in last year's Japanese Formula 3 Championship, and now the JAF Grand Prix. He will get that little belt here, and he will treasure that.
his appearance in Europe for the Euro Formula Open was actually very, very late in the year. He guessed it for a race weekend. I think he actually got a couple of poles that weekend as well. So
he turned up for 2 races, won them both, and left again.
Yeah, and you get that occasionally. Several junior drivers popping in for individual race weekends, just extra track time. Everything that is extra track time is worthwhile. As we see the results for today's race, Toshiki Oyu with the race win, only half a second ahead of Narei Fukuzumi. Yuki Sekiguchi held on to 3rd place ahead of Sho Suboi, while Tomoki Nojiri took 5th place. Good result for him from 17th. Kenta Yamashita 6th across the line ahead of the joint championship leader, I think, Rio Hirakawa. Then 8th place, Tadasuke Makino, the teammate of race winner Nakajima Racing. Then Kazuyo Oshima coming home 9th, while Hiroki Ishura rounded out the points. 10th place for the Ing driver ahead of the Team Mugen's Yukio Sasahara. Tatiana Calderon fell down to 12th late in the race. That's equal to her best result of the season. Charles Malaysia in his 3rd Super Formula race took 13th. Nobuharu Matsushita 14th. Kamui Kobayashi 15th. And I can't actually remember who it was on screen that came home 16th.
Well, more congratulations there for Oyu, who's celebrating. Let's have a look back at how we ended up here. Well, the race started as planned, which it didn't yesterday. And Nick Cassidy got away and looked like he was, for all people, he was going quite well. But as somebody once said to me when I was coming up through the racing ranks myself, Sasha Fenestraz, he got tangled with Kamui Kobayashi and deranged his car. And that brought out the first safety car. Then there was trouble for the Docomo Team Dandelion racing car of, well, this was the big story, though. This was Nick Cassidy blowing up. Of course, we saw Naoki Yamamoto just driving into the garage there. But Nick Cassidy, also another championship contender, very rare Toyota engine failure. Then almost in the same moment, a right rear puncture for his teammate, Nakajima, who then coasted back to the pits. That brought out another safety car. Everybody came into the pits, apart from 2 cars. They didn't bother, and that didn't work out for them. And that gave Toshiki Oyu the lead of the race, just as they came out of the pits. That was extremely close, and that's actually the order they finished in. But getting this race back going, Oyu really upset the order a little bit. But the race wasn't done. There were battles throughout, and then there was this strange spin, another right rear failure for the tyre failure. And it was so close that the 2 cars came together to hitting. And that safety car then started things up going again. And it was just very strange. It was just one of these brilliant battles. Hirakawa really struggling for pace at times, but this was the battle towards the end. Could Toshiki Oyu do anything about holding on? Yes, he could. Nirei Fukuzumi had no answer, and Nirei Fukuzumi looks to be utterly furious post-race. Stay with us for the podium. We'll see the reactions from these drivers, but there's still hard time to hit like and subscribe here on the-race.com. And don't forget, before we look at the driver standings, well, there they are. There are the driver standings, but don't forget there are drop scores to take into account. But there's 4 drivers in it for the championship realistically. Hirakawa, Yamamoto, Nojiri and Cassidy, with 1 race to go in 2 weeks' time at Fuji Speedway. It'll be live and in full here on the-race.com. So if you haven't hit like and subscribe already, do so, and we will send it straight to your inbox. Coming up now, though, the podium ceremonies. Leigh,
one thing to think I think Toshiki Oyu is going to be very happy about this one. I actually think both Naoki Yamamoto and Nick Cassidy are going to be quite happy about this one, in the sense that Hirakawa didn't score big.
Well, you said you think Toshiki Oyu is going to be happy about this one. He's very happy about this one. Oh, he's probably going to start crying again, isn't he?
It's an unusual situation as well at Nakajima Racing. Toshiki Oyu's come in, he's won today. Tadasuke Makino down in 8th place. And it's representative slightly of the situation we had last year at Nakajima Racing, where we had another rookie, Alex Palou, also showing very, very well and was in the championship hunt right to the very end of the season. And I think Makino needed a kicking, as it were, to get his performance level up. and they're going to be asking the same for him now as the Japanese national anthem rings out once again.
Round of applause there for Toshiki Oyu. And because this is the second of the two races at this year's JAF Grand Prix, Toshiki Oyu will get that famous JAF Grand Prix trophy there. You can see it at his feet. Naoki Yamamoto didn't get it yesterday because it was only the Saturday race. But now, look, raising that big trophy is Toshiki Oyu, and that is it. That is the Perpetual Cup for the JAF Grand Prix, Japan Auto Federation. And that is quite a trophy to take home. He will be very happy with that sat next to him on the green car on the Shinkansen from Nagoya this evening back to Tokyo.
And waving the Honda flags there as well.
Yeah, 2 Honda flags, 1 Toyota. And then they pick up the Belle Deer Trophy. If you're wondering what that's about at Suzuka, I wish they'd introduce this for the Japanese Grand Prix in Formula 1, actually. This is a trophy of a deer with a bell on the end because it's a Belle Deer. Suzuka means Belle Deer, if you translate it directly. And it's a very old, it's a very, very old name in Japanese. And then we have a look at the Japanese spectators. I believe there's about 15,000 spectators in Suzuka this weekend. Japan has fared the virus somewhat better than many other countries in the world, and that's allowed them to get back to going to normal a lot better. Toshiki Oyu enjoys it.
And that's a little bit galling in a sense as well for Toyota, Sam. Honda seemed quite dominant yesterday, and it looked as if Nick Cassidy was going to claim some honour back today, but then a big engine failure. It wasn't as if there was Cassidy got taken out by an accident. It was an engine failure that then promoted Honda to a Honda driver to a race win. That's going to be pretty galling for Toyota.
What's going to gall him even more there, Leigh, is I think that engine failure will probably result in him putting in a new engine for the final race. That'll be a 10-place grid penalty.
It will indeed. It will indeed. We actually had 2 penalties before the start of this race for engine changes as well for Matsushita and Sasahara, as we see Toshiki Oyu taking the spoils of victory. And I'm sure that'll either go in a shelf or maybe in the recycling bin later on.
Well, the bottle might go in the recycling bin. I suspect it'll go on the shelf. The contents of it, though, I think they're going to be going into Toshiki Oyu and his team's
belly,
mostly. Well, that was. We'll be looking back over the race, but there is your championship points leaders car. It's the Team Impul Dallara of Rio Hirakawa. Car 20 is the man to beat going in to the final race of the 2020 Super Formula Championship. Be live and in full Fuji Speedway here on the-race.com in just 2 weeks' time. It's the last big bit of motor racing, I believe, of the 2020 in whole. What a difficult year it's been. What a tragic year in many ways. But we have still managed to get a great year of motor racing going on, and much of it has been on this channel. We've had Super GT live and exclusive. We've had Super Formula. We've had endurance and GT racing. It's been a fantastic race on the year. So we should be having a look at the final summing up of the race. Leigh, some final comments from you looking at what's left of Nick Cassidy's car.
It's going to be a lot of thinking in the next 2 weeks. Fuji is only 2 weeks away. Cassidy's going to be thinking about a potential engine penalty. Yamamoto's going to be thinking about the issues that his Dandelion entry had today. Hirakawa is going to be thinking about lost opportunities this weekend. You know, the 3 championship runners, but there in the midst of it is Tomoki Nojiri, who, in a sense, he qualified second yesterday, had a problem at the start, got a few points in the end anyway, had a poor qualifying today, and has ended up in the top 5. You know, he's a very, very quiet run for the championship in 3rd place. He still needs to drop points, though, because he's actually dropped points today already, so he'll be in a position to drop more points next time out. That will handicap them.
Well, there you can see confirmation of the final round of the 2020 Super Formula Championship, December the 20th, qualifying and the race live from Fuji Speedway. Will be a bit of a showdown. Very different track, another one of Japanese great old circuits. It will be a decider to see if it will be the driver of this car, the driver of car 20, or the driver of car 1 that takes these championships. So it's been great to have you all on board watching us and listening and enjoying this race here on the-race.com. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe so we can send you the joining details for that final race of the year, the 2020 Super Formula Championship. We review these Dallara SF19 cars in the garage in the post-race moments.
And Sam, 2 weeks' time, Fuji, it had a wonderful weekend at Suzuka circuit, and this race season, the back end of this race season, has just flown by. As you mentioned, only 1 round to go.
Well, it was quite a weekend. There was a race start, they rolled off the car, got off the grid and into focus and out of focus again. A car spun, nearly hit another. The chronology went out of things. Satoru Nakajima noticed that. There were battles. There was Oyu in the lead, and a brand new winner. And there were tears on the start-finish line at Suzuka. The fist was pumped, and that was the 2020 JAF Grand Prix. I've been Sam Collins, and I've been joined by Leo Gorman. Thanks for watching us here on the-race.com. Join us in 2 weeks for the finale of Fuji Speedway.
Welcome to the race.
And the lights are out. Great start then.
The Moto2 champion steps into the team that's dominating the championship.
I'm Scott Mitchell from the race. We're here at Barcelona.
Sebastian Vettel is fighting for his career.
There has to be a title assault, and anything less will be a failure.
Oh, and a spin!
We lost the GoPro.